Here we are. How you doing today? We are live with Ocean Robbins. How you doing, Ocean?
I am great. So happy to be here with you.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. So we're gonna have a lot of fun here today because we're gonna be talking a lot about the Food Revolution Summit, which actually has gone live earlier in the year, and it's actually going through a relaunch right now. And I wanted to actually get Ocean on this Facebook Live with us because he's got a lot of color commentary to add to it to explain to people exactly what people are going to learn, why you should participate in it if you haven't done it, and even if you already have done it, do it again. So there's a lot to talk about here. Ocean, the first question I have for you here is, can you give us a little bit of background here on who you are as an individual? Because you are not only the CEO and co-founder of the Food Revolution Network, but your last name is Robbins. That's also closely linked to Baskin Robbins, the ice cream company. So tell our viewers here a little bit about yourself and why you don't sell ice cream.
Okay. Well, it's true. So, family history here. My grandpa, Irvin Robbins, founded what became the world's largest ice cream company, Baskin Robbins. And my dad, John, grew up with an ice cream cone shaped swimming pool in the backyard and 31 flavors of ice cream in the freezer. He was groomed to one day join in running the family company. But when he was in his early 20s, he was offered that chance and he said, not for me. And he walked away from a path that was practically paved with gold and ice cream to, as we jokingly say in our family, follow his own rocky road. And he ended up moving with my mom to a little island off the coast of Canada where they built a one-room log cabin and practiced yoga and meditation for several hours a day, grew most of their own food, and named their kid Ocean. They almost named me Kale, by the way, and this is way before kale was cool. But we
Is
did
that
eat a
your
lot of kale and cabbage and carrots and other veggies from the garden. And
and does anybody call you Kale as a nickname?
it's never happened, and I hope it never does. Although I do love kale, I will say that. But in time, my family moved to California. My dad wound up working on a book called Diet for a New America, which came out in 1987. And it inspired millions of people to look at their food choices as a chance to make a difference on the planet. And, amazingly enough, one of his readers ended up being my grandpa Irv. Now, my grandpa Irv had lost his brother-in-law and business partner, Bert Baskin, to heart disease when my dad's uncle, Bert, the co-founder of Baskin Robbins, had died at the age of 54. And now my grandpa at 69 found himself with serious type 2 diabetes, as well as heart issues and weight issues. And his doctors told him he didn't have long to live unless he made some big changes. Well, they ended up giving him a copy of my dad's book, telling him to read it, which he did. And my grandpa got results. He reversed his diabetes completely, got off meds he'd been told he'd need to take for the rest of his life, reversed his heart disease, lost a bunch of weight, and wound up living 19 more healthy years. So we really have seen in our family that when we follow the standard American diet, we get the standard American diseases like my dad's uncle Bert did and like my grandpa did for a time. We've also seen that when we make big changes, we can get big results. So I was inspired by my grandpa's legacy of making a big impact and also having the courage to make some changes. And I was also inspired by my dad's leadership and choice for integrity. So I founded a nonprofit when I was 16 called Yes and worked with young leaders in 65 countries around the globe. And as I traveled the world, I saw that everybody eats. And what we're eating is having this massive impact, not only on our health, but also on our planet. And so in 2012, I joined with my dad in launching Food Revolution Network so I could focus on food directly. And our mission is healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for all. So that's a little bit of the background. And now we've got over 700,000 members, and I'm on a mission. I want to change the way the world eats.
Do you feel like you are actually changing the way the world eats at this point? Because I see your guys' messaging, I see your marketing, I see the summit, I see all the individual experiences, the master classes you guys host, and I got to tell you, you guys do an incredible job of getting the information out. So from my perspective, the answer is yes, but I want to know it from you, given that you're the man behind the beautiful business.
Well, I mean, I can tell you this. We've sent out in the last 12 years, we've sent out several hundred million emails to our audience, inspiring people and sharing resources. We have millions of people visiting our website every month. We've hosted more than 2 million people in our online food revolution summits. We'll talk about that more today because you can join in right now in the current one. And, you know, then you can look at the larger social context of our times and say, well, the world is changing the way that it eats pretty darn fast. That the number of Americans who identify as vegan has increased 30-fold in the last decade. You know, and we started 12 years ago, so I'd like to think we've played some part in that, right? We're now seeing organic foods sold in Walmart. We're seeing Burger King selling veggie burgers and Carl's Jr. selling veggie burgers. And, you know, I didn't think I'd see that in my lifetime. We're seeing non-dairy milk sales starting to take a serious bite out of fluid milk sales. We're seeing a wholesale movement where more and more people are choosing plant-based for their health, for their environment, for their ethics, whatever the reasons. People are changing their dietary patterns. And I think that's really good news for a lot of reasons, because at the end of the day, moving away from animal product centric diets and moving away from sugar, which is also happening. Number of pounds of sugar consumed by the average American has been going down as well. So put these things together and we have the potential for people to start to get healthier. And not only that, to contribute to a healthier world, because every pound of meat we don't eat is less rainforest that's going to be chopped down or burnt to create grazing land for cattle. It's less climate change emissions. And of course, it's less diabetes and less heart attacks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It is really cool actually to be alive at this time, because we are seeing an actual revolution happen as people are waking up and recognizing that a lot of the products that had been marketed to them from the 1980s and 1990s about being low fat and having low sugar, in reality are just sort of like deceptive tactics that, you know, the weight loss industry and the food manufacturers have used over the course of time to get people hooked and addicted to their food. But I think people are starting to wake up and recognize that, wait a minute, that's not going to actually help me optimize my health in the long term. In fact, I have to take full responsibility for what goes into my mouth. And when I can do it using a whole food, plant strong diet or whole food, plant-based diet, then their world opens up in front of them in ways they never predicted.
It's so true. You know, and here's the thing. When you make a choice for your health and your well-being, you're sending a message to your cells that say, I love you, I care about you. When you choose real, wholesome, healthy food, the impact is psychological and spiritual as well as physical. And I think that any step you take that is an expression of love for yourself or an expression of love for your planet sends out ripples. And, you know, so many of us today are treating our bodies and our health like a bit of an afterthought. You know, we're focused on career objectives, we're focused on survival, we're focused on family, and we kind of put our health on the back burner in a sense. And, you know, I do that too plenty of times, you know, and think about, you know, dental care. For a while, I wasn't brushing my teeth real well. And my dentist had to say, look, you better get that plaque off, you know? So, you know, and then I started brushing like it actually mattered rather than just going through the motions, right? So a lot of us eat on autopilot and we just kind of do what's familiar. And in a toxic food culture, the status quo is a recipe for sickness and disease and premature death. So when you make positive choices to step out, to be an outlier, to be a leader of a healthy food movement, then your body will thank you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, very well said. Extremely well said. So in the Food Revolution Summit, by the way, for those of you who are just tuning in, if you're interested in joining the Food Revolution Summit, I highly recommend it. It's literally one of the best online events of the entire year, and it's masterminded by Ocean here. You can visit masteringdiabetes.org/FRS, stands for Food Revolution Summit. So masteringdiabetes.org/FRS. And here you're going to learn about exactly why you want to participate. It's a phenomenal experience that takes multiple days to really learn information from many of the world's trusted experts. So in this summit, we have Dr. Robin Chutkin, gut health expert, Dr. Dean Ornish, heart health expert, Dr. William Lee, Dr. Christy Funk, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Uma Naidu, Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, who you guys have seen on the show multiple times, Susan Pierce Thompson, Joel Kahn, and the list goes on. So Ocean, give us a little bit of a insight here. As you were putting this summit together, what are some of the things that you had learned being the mastermind behind the entire process?
Oh my goodness. You know, one of the incredible joys in this summit is my dad and colleague, 2 million copy best-selling out there, John Robbins, you know, interviews all of these folks personally in the summit. And I get to host all those interviews. And really, as we were doing the outreach, we're thinking, well, who are the top experts on the planet for the critical areas related to food? So we're looking at, of course, type 2 diabetes. We're looking at heart health. We're looking at brain health and brain performance. We're looking at cancer and anti-cancer living. We're looking at Alzheimer's and dementia prevention. We're looking at how your food impacts your world, your ethics and integrity, your sense of what it means to be a human on this planet, and putting all that together and then focusing on implementation so you can get the results you want. And so the Food Revolution Summit is really a deep dive into how you can make food the foundation of your health and what the latest learnings of medical science have come up with. Because, we're learning new stuff all the time. We have tens of thousands of studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals that are constantly giving us new insights and epiphanies. So in this year's Food Revolution Summit, we're focusing on the latest breaking insights, what you need to know now about food and health for you and health for your planet. And some of this stuff, has been around for a while because the truth, to some extent, is consistent. The human body hasn't changed a lot in the last generation or two in terms of how it responds to nutrients, but some of it is super cutting edge. And I love some of these distinctions. For example, one of the things that we talked about in this summit was sulforaphane. Now, a lot of folks are hearing about sulforaphane, which is a compound that's made in the body when you combine certain enzymes with certain glucosinolates. And the result is sulforaphane, which is a potent antioxidant and cancer-fighting compound. And what a lot of folks don't know is that you don't get... So sulforaphane is made primarily when you consume cruciferous vegetables, especially high in broccoli sprouts, but it's also in broccoli. It's also, you get it out of, kale and cabbage and all the other cruciferous veggies. But what a lot of folks don't know is that your body can't make it if there isn't some raw in the mix. So if you're just eating cooked kale, for example, you'll get a lot of wonderful benefits, but sulforaphane won't be one of them. But if you add in just a tablespoon of raw cruciferous veggies, then you get the specific enzymes that combine with the glucosinolates, which are found in cooked or raw, and then you get incredible benefits. So adding like a tablespoon of shredded cabbage to your steamed cruciferous veggies will give you all those amazing benefits. So that's one of those kind of tips, if you will, that I find fascinating. Another one, Dr. William Lee in the summit talked a bit about berries and some of the berries that are so incredible for helping fight cancer. And, black raspberries, who knew, turn out to be superstars. So you can get these frozen in some places. There's a lot of other amazing kind of things we're learning all the time. Another one is about legumes. That may be more familiar to some. But the amazing thing is that in the blue zones, the places in the world where people live the longest and healthiest lives, the number one food that they all eat in all of the blue zones is lots of legumes. And turns out that beans are a nutritional superstar. They're rich in fiber, they're rich in protein, and they give you some compounds that turn out to be really beneficial for human health and longevity. So, they're associated with lower rates of not just cancer and type 2 diabetes, but also heart disease. And most significantly in this context, longevity. You just straight up live longer when you eat more beans. They happen to be super affordable. And one of the things I'm always interested in is how we can make healthy eating affordable to everybody. Because, you shouldn't have to be rich to have healthy food. And the reality is that right now, statistically, the poorer people are in the United States and around the world, the more likely they are to depend for a majority of their calories on cheaper foods, which tend, in our current economic climate, to be toxic ones. And then they end up having more expensive diseases long-term, which creates intergenerational cycles of poverty. So at Food Revolution Network, we want to help turn that around by empowering everybody with the knowledge about how to eat really well and affordably. And that's really our top goal.
Yeah, actually, I really like that last goal that you just talked about here, because there's a lot of people within the Mastering Diabetes world that also have the same perception that if you choose to eat a nutrient-dense diet and you choose to eat a more plant-rich diet, that you must spend more money at the grocery store. And I've actually found personally, it's the opposite.
It is.
If you actually reduce your meat consumption, reduce your dairy consumption, and reduce your consumption of refined products, you actually have a lower grocery bill and a collection of foods that are significantly more nutrient dense and guaranteed to improve your optimal, your wellness in the long term.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the cost comparison between beans and beef, for example, right? And
Correct.
beans are dry, and you cook them, and they 3x in size, and they're cheaper to begin with. And of course, if you want to go organic, that's going to cost more. But I consider organic an option for those who can afford it. The studies showing us that people are healthier when they eat lots of fruits and vegetables, for the most part, are conducted with people who are eating not organically grown fruits and veggies, and they're still getting tremendous results. So don't make the perfect into the enemy of the good there. If you can afford it, organic's a great way to reduce your pesticide exposure. It's a great way to contribute to a healthier environment, healthier water and air, and healthier farm workers. So it's a great move if you can, but if you cannot, then by all means, eat your fruits and veggies and healthy, wholesome foods. And going plant-based can save you a ton of money. And the other thing that will save you money is preparing food yourself more. When you take charge of your kitchen, when you learn how to even get familiar with some basic recipes, then you can make those your staples. And instead of eating out or depending on packaged or convenience foods, there's markups. Every time a company puts something in a bunch of plastic and ships it 10,000 miles around the world, every time there are multiple people in supply chains, you get markups in price. So why not have your food money go to farmers and to your health rather than to all these middle people or middle companies? So I think to the extent possible, supporting local farms, local businesses, eating whole foods, and learning how to cook are really powerful tools. That's one of the reasons in the Food Revolution Summit, we also include recipe demo videos and lots of great recipes. I think there's 27 different amazing whole foods plant-based recipes that also come completely for free when you sign up. Again, the link is it's masteringdiabetes.com/FRN, right?
.org/FRN.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
masteringdiabetes.org/FRN. And you
Yep.
can sign up and join us and hear my dad interviewing 24 of the top food experts on the planet with me hosting, all instantly. So we conducted this earlier in the year. So you can get it all on demand right away. You don't have to wait. You can listen to the specific interviews that you're most interested in right away. Hear it, absorb it, check out the recipes, check out the recipe demo videos, all completely for free.
And Ocean, maybe touch a little bit here on the information that people can learn about the presence of pesticides, hormones, and antibiotics, because as you and I both know, these sort of toxic chemicals are spreading throughout our food supply, and it almost seems like it's hard to escape them. And we know from plenty of evidence-based research that the more of these toxic chemicals that you consume, the more that goes on your skin, the more that goes in your mouth, the worse your health is likely to be over the course of time.
Yeah.
So what are some of the strategies that the speakers talk about here in trying to avoid exposure to these chemicals and trying to maximize your long-term health?
Well, great questions, Cyrus. So when it comes to the pesticides, well, first of all, a lot of our toxic chemical exposure is actually coming from our kitchens, the food storage containers we use and the pots and pans we use. So, in our household, for example, we've chosen to try to get plastic out of all of our food storage. So we store our food in glass with plastic snap-on lids. I'm okay with that because they're not touching the food directly. They're just sealing it in. Or in stainless steel, we don't store food in plastic Tupperware containers. And that's based on research. Those plastics will leach out, whether it's acidic things like tomatoes or oranges, or whether it's heat or sun exposure, they'll leach toxins directly into your food, which actually cause diabetes, amazingly enough, along with weight gain and a whole host of hormonal imbalances and other problems. And then we also don't use the so-called nonstick cookware, Teflon and so forth, because that also can release toxic compounds when you heat it past a certain temperature. Well, guess what happens on your stove, right? We heat our stove appliances. So yeah, if you always cooked on low, you might be okay, but you might not, because you can also scrape with a spoon and degrade the stuff. So we use enamel coated cast iron or cast iron directly in our kitchen for the sort of frying pan type of uses, and then stainless steel wherever possible for our bigger pots. And that way we're avoiding that exposure to some of those compounds. Now, when it comes to your actual produce or grains or legumes or other foods that you're eating, that's another spot to avoid exposure to toxic pesticides that are sprayed on the land. And as I mentioned earlier, going organic when you can afford it and when you can is optimal. That's a great way to steer clear of toxic pesticides. If you can't afford that, here's a couple of tips. Number one, in general, anything that has a peel or a skin that you don't eat, that's going to absorb most of the pesticides. So if we're talking about papayas and pineapples, or we're talking about even bananas, if we're talking about avocados, the
Mangoes.
inside is generally pretty low in pesticide exposure. And then Environmental Working Group actually has a directory. You can Google it if you want to. But they have what they call the Clean 15, which are the least pesticide contaminated, and then the Dirty Dozen, which are the most pesticide contaminated fruits and vegetables. And that's a great resource. So what you can do is you can choose to go organic if possible with the Dirty Dozen, for example, or some of the ones that tend to be more contaminated. And then if you can't go organic, then the next best thing is to wash well. And the number one way to wash well is put a tablespoon of baking soda into a gallon of water and soak your veggies in there for about 10 minutes, then rinse them off, and you're getting rid of the vast majority of whatever pesticides might be on the leaves or what have you. So that's an option, for those who can't afford organic with some of the things that may be pesticide contaminated. Little baking soda solution seems to do the trick. It's pretty cheap. You don't need those fancy produce washes. They are less effective than baking soda water.
That's one of those DIY hacks, if you will, that's actually really powerful, because the research shows that you can actually use baking soda, which costs pennies, and it does a better job than getting some of these, like potassium permanganate and beyond, these fancy scrubs that can cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So this is phenomenal. So there's a little bit of confusion, I think, in the chat box about whether or not you have to be in a certain part of the world in order to participate. So just for clarity, this is an online event, which means you can be in Antarctica, you can be in France, wherever you are, you can participate as long as you have an internet connection. You can do it on your mobile phone. You can do it on a computer. It doesn't matter. Just visit masteringdiabetes.org/FRS. And this is also a free event. You do not have to pay any money to participate. This is a service that Ocean Robbins is putting on to the community of those who are interested in learning about how to optimize their health in the long term and how to eat a more plant-focused diet and how to significantly improve their own health and the health of others, their loved ones as well. You will, and by participating in this event, you'll also get the latest cutting edge insights from 25 of the world's most trusted authorities. So you, just like he said, have an opportunity to a la carte listen to one episode, a different episode, and you can choose exactly. You can kind of navigate your own experience. And I've been through the Food Revolution Summit multiple times. I find it to be the best event of the year. Very powerful information. And just like he had told you, you can learn a little tidbit here, a little tidbit here, a little tidbit here, and add it to your arsenal of important information that you can use to transform your life in the long term. A couple of people want to know, when does the summit start, Ocean? Can you kind of give a little insight here?
Starts the moment you register, because we conducted these interviews a little bit earlier in the year. And so when we released them, people had to join in, and they got it, 3 per day over the course of 9 days. But now we're doing a re-airing of this entire, because the response was so incredible. We had over 300,000 people join us, and people have been begging us, please, can I listen again? I want to hear more. I want to hear it fresh. And a lot of people didn't even know about the summit last time. So now you can join in completely for free and get it all instantly. And you can go in any order you want, and you'll have 4 days from the moment you register. You have 4 days to listen to anything and everything in the entire summit, completely for free, and also make all the recipes and check out the recipe demonstration videos. This really is an amazing opportunity. And you go to masteringdiabetes.org/FRS, which stands for Food Revolution Summit, and join us.
That's exactly right. You got a super fan. Bob Madison says he's coming to the PBNAC conference, and he's going to be meeting you there. He can't wait to see you.
I'll see you there, Bob.
He watched the most recent summit and he thought it was fantastic. So
wonderful.
If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box. Otherwise, thanks so much for your time today, Ocean. You're a wealth of information, and the inspiration that comes out of you is phenomenal. Really appreciate all the time and hard work that you and your dad have put into creating this summit. And we encourage all of you to join. You're going to learn a lot, and you can really use this information to help yourself and your loved ones live the healthiest life possible.
Thank you, Cyrus. So good to be here with you. Thanks to everyone who's joining us right now. We'll look forward to seeing you in the summit.